So, a very good evening, and thank you all for your participation. As I mentioned earlier, we have for today's webinar almost 51 registrations, and so far we are having almost 17 people. So I'm going to mute everyone, and after this webinar initial presentation, we'll have this opportunity for the more focused conversation. So I'm going to start with my presentations. And once again, thank you so much for your availability. If you can see my screen, it is evident that my name is Zahid Mubarak, and I am the CEO of the HR Metrics. Apart from that, I have few other positions and the designation, including the member of the board, the Center for Global Inclusion USA. And I'm also leading the HR standards here in Pakistan and worldwide, the Technical Committee 260, which is responsible for developing the HR metric standard. I'm also responsible for that at the global level, and took the initiative of starting the SHRM forum here in Pakistan. So with this, the initial introduction. In today's webinar, I'll walk you through very briefly some of the things that have taken place in Pakistan in past 4 to 5 years, and then the way forward, how we are evolving, and what's the plan for the remaining part of the 2018 and the early part of the 2019. Before we move forward, some of the features of this platform, the Zoom webinar, particularly those who are using for the first time. So on its display panel, you have various buttons, and including the audio button, which has option of mute and unmute. Now, during this presentation, everybody is going to be in mute state because I would like to deliver now and would like to present whatever I want to present. After this presentation is over, I'll unmute yourself. During the presentations, while I'm sharing all the developments, if you have certain questions, you can always type in the chat box. And we'll use the chat box toward the end for handling the questions in the order in which they appear. While the presentation is over and we are in the unmute state, and if you want to talk, you want to say something, just use the option of raising hand, and I'll then request you to say whatever you want to say. And I would request everyone to be very crisp and short, so that everybody gets an opportunity to speak. We also have the option of using video. During the presentation, we would not like to use them to avoid a distraction from the slides. After the presentation, during the conversation, you're welcome to use, and I would also prefer to use the video. The system also provides opportunity for recording the meeting, and we will record this meeting, particularly to provide this link to the people who are not able to join in the evening and who are interested in this initiative. Also, there's a provision to have an opinion poll towards the end. And I have built certain questions so that based on this briefing, we can determine your interest in the particular interventions that will help us in understanding better your need. Finally, this platform is very easy to use, but still, if you have some technical difficulty, this number on the screen you can use to contact Sarish, and she should be able to guide you to effectively use this platform. Her contact number is 0342 5579 160. I repeat, 0342 5579 160, and Sarish Munawar is her name. Now, as I said, that in the first instance, we'll have a brief look on what has happened in the past. Subsequently, we'll see what we are planning for the future. So for the past, I would like to use the website, because this is I think, contains all kind of details, and it would be more helpful. So if you can see my screen, the HR Metrics, in fact, we offer 3 services. HR Metrics is a business concern, and we are an HR service provider company. And our area of expertise reside in 3 areas: HR analytics, SHRM HR competency standard and SHRM certification, and diversity and inclusion. So today we'll talk only about diversity and inclusion. Now within the D&I, we work with a defined mission that we help the organization to become sustainable through inclusive culture. We review global best practices, carry out local research to understand the market need, facilitate customized application of the global tools, build skill inventory, develop competencies of the practitioners, provide publication, and encourage professional networking to promote successful practices. And our services include helping the organization to develop a business case for D&I by linking it with the business and social impact indicators. And by business impact does not mean that it is meant only for the for-profit organization. Even the non-profit organization have certain clear outcomes, and we can help the organization in drawing the line of sight between the organization performance indicators and the D&I. We promote awareness on global diversity and inclusion benchmark standards and educate procedures for gap analysis in the benchmarking, and also provide consulting and training on D&I, strategy formulation, implementation, and evaluation. Our main product is basically the Global Diversity and Inclusion Benchmark Standard. In fact, this standard is built or has been developed by the Center for Global Inclusion USA. And this is the standard which is completely aligned with the United Nations 2030 goals in the form of the strategy to pursue 5 things: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. Now, if you look at this standard, this document, which we will be happy to provide you, there are 17 sustainable development goals of United Nations for 2030. And out of 17 goals, at least there are 6 goals. Goal number 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and 16, which directly talk about the diversity and inclusion. And this standard is a very robust framework. The GDIB is a very robust framework to draw a line of sight or to draw connections between what the organization is doing at the operation level and how does it contribute toward the 5 things, 5P, which I mentioned earlier. Now, this standard also has a measurable framework in a sense that if you see, this standard contains 14 different categories in the form of the 4 domains. The first domain comprises of the strategy, where there's a need to align the D&I strategy with the organization strategy by embedding it into the vision, leadership, accountabilities, and the structure. The next domain, where the organization is supposed to align these HR processes, including recruitment, training, compensation, and learning with the D&I. The third component, where the organization needs to embed D&I in external elements, which includes social responsibility, products and services, marketing, and supplier diversity. And final is the assessment and evaluation and communication, with the help of which the organization can draw linkages between what they're doing and how does it contribute toward the organization bottom line. Now, this document is built after a thorough research of almost 25 years. There are 95 experts involved into this process, the global experts. And currently, the chair of the Center for Global Inclusion is Julie O'Mara, who is the former national president of American Society for Training and Development. And this Center for Global Inclusion, apart from 95 experts, they have 9 board of director members, and I'm on their board. So I was talking about the importance of this standard, that the 14 categories that I've talked about, they have a very explicit framework with the help of which you can determine that in terms of readiness, where your organization stands out of these 5 ladders. The 5 ladders are inactive stage, reactive stage, proactive stage, progressive stage, and the best practices stage. So this document can be helpful to evaluate our own organization, to determine current state of readiness on the D&I in a very comprehensive way, not just in an operational way, but in a strategic way, and also to identify the next stage. So over there, I was talking about this standard. This is the main service that we offer here in Pakistan. In order to offer the services, we have created a layer, a network of the people, including the business people, which we call the D&I Leadership Council, in which the CEOs and the board members of some of the organizations, and some of the members are proactive in their personal capacity on the D&I front. So we have included them in our D&I Leadership Council because top management support is critical to take this D&I mission forward. In order to include the D&I at the strategy level, because primarily it's the job of the HR to drive in principle, though the D&I is not all about the HR. You must have seen in the standard that HR is a component which falls under the internal aspect. But since the overall, it is something more closer to the HR, so the role of HR is critical. So we have a network of the HR heads from the various leading organizations who are part of our C-suite network and whom we really consult to seek guidance, their involvement, and their participation in our various events. Third component is the Dni Champion Network. Last year, we identified some of the people who are proactive on D&I, and we involve them in our ongoing learning framework, and we created a platform for the mutual learning. So this is a network that we have created, and going forward, we would like to expand this network. We started our journey almost in the form of the conferences just 3 years ago. If you go to the bottom, in fact, 2016 was our first conference here in Pakistan on the D&I with collaboration of the Institute of the Bankers Pakistan. In 2017, we did another conference in Pakistan with Alliance of the Karachi School of Business Leadership. And in 2018, the most recent conference that took place in this year, and you can see a list of speakers in this conference. And now we are aiming for 2019 conference. In order to make this very rewarding initiative at all levels, this includes the recognition and encouragement of the organization who are doing exceptionally good. We also arrange awards. And our award framework is absolutely based on the evidence-based framework for which we use this document where the organization can self-evaluate their performance, and then they submit their own assessment along with the evidence to the jury, and then the jury has a discretion to accept or reject, or you can say finally decide on the awards. So this year, the number of the organizations who got the awards include Telenor, Standard Chartered, Jazz, HPL, Nestle, PepsiCo, Mentor Graphics, which is a Siemens business, British Council, Thar Foundation, Abacus Consulting, Han Foundation, TAF Foundation, Finca, and Pakistan Poverty Alleviation Fund. So we had award last year also, and in 2016 also. In 2015, we were not very well organized. In fact, that was our startup when a third organization asked us to recommend few organizations for the awards. So on a very hasty note, we recommended few organizations, but from 2016 onward, we started formally our awards based on the more comprehensive process. Other than the conferences and awards, we make sure that we include the various stakeholders at all levels in this process. So in 2015, we invited the ambassadors from the 14 leading countries along with another company, another organizations, and those ambassadors included the USA, the UK, Switzerland, France, Japan. In fact, there were the consul journals based in Karachi. So we did a round table to understand what is happening in their countries, because most of these countries are very advanced on the D&I. Last year, we did evening virtual sessions where the people who have really developed the standard, and they are the leading experts from the United States, Europe, and a few other countries, they conducted 7 sessions for the Dni champions, Pakistan Dni champions, whom I have already shown in the previous slide. Other than that, this year we did a Women for Board program, one-day event in Karachi. And we also organized the Inclusive Leadership Program. In fact, Women for Board was meant for the C-suite women, and Inclusive Leadership Program was meant for the middle tier women, and the HR, mostly the HR leaders from the various organizations, they conducted these programs. And another layer of the program was the Dni Champions program, where the people who are responsible for the Dni portfolio, we gathered them at various stations and organized various events for their learning on the Dni, on the GDIB standard. Now, going forward, the plan is shown on the screen. You can see over here, and I don't know, is it really? Yeah, I think it should be relatively better now. Now, this plan includes today the how to measure diversity value index. Today we are going to discuss it. It will take around 10 to 15 minutes. Afterwards, in the next month, we have a D&I survey, and you're welcome to participate. There's no cost for participation in the survey, and the survey participants are going to get report. Afterward, there's a series of the 6 sessions, which include disability inclusion, millennial inclusion, developing D&I initiative from the start, harassment prevention and handling policy, diversity sensitization and unconscious bias, global diversity and inclusion benchmark standard learning session. This is again a one-day event, online event, in which we would encourage people from across Pakistan to participate, particularly those who do not have exposure to the GDIB. D&I award submissions. This is going to continue from 1st September to 31st October. Women for Board mentoring program. You would be aware that Companies Act 2017 makes it binding for the companies to have at least 1 woman at the board level. But keep in mind that this D&I initiative is quite broader. It's not just limited to the women, though the gender is one of the important component of it. And then we are going to have the conference on 6th March, just 2 days before the Diversity Day, Women Day on 8th of March. And based on the achievement of the conference, we'll issue a publication on 30th of April, where the highlights of the conference and particularly the award winners will publish their success stories. Now, whatever that I've talked about so far, most of these programs, they exist on our website with all the relevant details. And we are trying our best to have the subject matter experts to deliver these programs. For example, the Summer McPhee, who's going to talk about the D&I, she is award winner by the UN. This year, she has been given an award. And likewise, in the next session is going to be by Madhia Khalid. She is head of the HR of the Shell. And on the harassment preventions, Hamna Aslam is the barrister of Punjab. And likewise, all of the program hopefully would be led by the expert. Apart from that, few specialized interventions we have for this coming year is the Women for Board program. Initially, we organized a number of sessions, almost 8 sessions on the weekends, but the feedback was that it was not possible to attend frequent sessions. So now we have carried forward this one and organizing a one-day program next year, somewhere in the February. And there's another program which is built around 36 different soft skills competency, which can really help in developing a leadership pipeline at the managerial level. So this is a very good mix of some of the intervention that we are offering. Now I come back to the presentation part, where I have shared with you the program for the future. And the summary of this whole process is that like we have developed a network in the past, this year we want to expand our network. And in this expansion process, our objective is to develop the subject matter experts who find D&I as an opportunity of developing expertise as a subject matter expert, as area of specialization. And at the same time, they should also be able to cater for the market needs, because going forward, this is going to be a full-fledged professional stream. So we will conduct a survey. With the help of survey, we're also going to do some benchmarking on the gender headcount. This is part of the survey. And the tool that I'm going to share with you, Diversity Value Index, we'll be happy to provide you this tool free of cost if you are interested to participate in the survey. The GDIB standard that I've shared with you, it has got 14 different categories, and in all the categories, there are 266 benchmarks. Now, during this year, during later part of this year, we would like to do an exercise to determine your area of expertise in the various benchmarks. For example, we call it a benchmark, and GDIB calls also a benchmark. This is 1.1 is a benchmark. So if you have an experience of embedding the D&I in the organization culture, so how it is being done, we look forward to you to educate the market, inspire others, contribute in the learning of others. And if you have something exceptional to demonstrate, then toward the end of the year, the conference that we have in the March, we'll be happy to recognize you for your effort. So the D&I benchmarking survey, diversity value index, benchmarking skill inventory, the learning session that I've shared with you. And finally, since this Center for Global Inclusion within the United States, they have affiliation with another organization which is called Forum for Workplace Inclusion. And they have a very interesting conference, a very well-rounded conference in which the speakers from around the world, they come over. This is a glimpse of the 2018 conference. For example, the head of the D&I of the Uber, the head of the D&I of the Unilever, they have been speaking over there. It's a very good opportunity to have a hands-on expertise and getting to know what is happening worldwide. So those who are interested, they can let us know, and we'll determine with the help of this poll, so that if you are interested to have more information about this conference, we'll be happy to share. This year, one of the person from Pakistan was selected. Shiri Naqvi was selected by the forum as a presenter over there. And if you are selected as a presenter, then obviously your cost, traveling, etc., is borne by the organizer. So it's a great opportunity to explore the possibility of being there as a presenter or the participant. But keep in mind, if you're going as a participant, then there's a cost of participation. I think it's around $1,500, but usually we get a good discount for our this Pakistan D&I hub. So with this now, I would like to come to the GDIV Diversity Value Index. I think that should be an interesting part for you, because this is something which can be easily used in the organization. Now, if you can see my screen, you would see that those organizations who have clearly defined targets to meet the D&I goals, they aim to achieve certain headcounts. Now, the logic for that headcount, that is determined with the help of the business case, and that is not shown over here, but this can be helpful as long as you are determined and you have a defined goal to meet your D&I, you are aiming to meet your D&I goals. Now, how it works, first of all, we call it the Diversity Value Index, because if you have certain objectives, and that means you value to have that number, and it is categorized into the 3 categories. So in order to meet your targets, what you need to do is that you need to identify that, say, if you're going for to have female at various levels, so you determine that the 3 levels, the C-suite level, the supervisor and the managers, and the non-management level. If you wish to have more categories, it's your choice. This is a framework which you can always customize. For benchmarking, we'd always prefer to use a consistent framework, but in order to do calculation at the organization level, you can always customize it. Now, in order to determine the diversity value index, first thing that you do, that you distribute certain weightages out of 100 to the various categories. Say, for example, you have 100 marks, so it's your choice to whom you give 50%, 30%, 20%, or any combination. So in this case, for our demonstration purpose, I have assumed that the organization is given 50% weightage to female at the C-suite level. For supervisory level is 30%, and non-management is 20%. But the logic is that sum of all should be 100. It's your choice how much weightage you give to the every level, but it should be certainly justified and logical that your whatever the percentage you want to record. This is the overall weightage. Secondly, for the current year, now you want to have certain clear targets. So again, you would like to take certain view. Say in this case, you say that in your C-suite, at least 30% of the C-suite should be women. In your supervisors and managers, 30% should be women. In non-management, 30%. It's not necessary to have some of this as 100. It could be any. For example, you might say that your supervisor and manager should be 50%. So it's always your choice. There's nothing hard and fast over there. But in this previous case, some of this should be 100. It's not necessary to have 100 over there. Now, how do you calculate the DVI? You must just simply multiply the target of your workforce with the weightage. See this formula. For the DVI, factor 1 weightage multiplied by target 1 weightage. So factor 1 weightage is 50%. The target 1 weightage is 30%. So if you multiply, though, it gives you 15. And to calculate the DVI, you take sum and then divide it by the total number, or you can say you take its average. So in this case, for example, for the C-suite, the target DVI is 15. For the supervisor, is it 9? For the non-management, it is 6 by using the same formula. And the total DVI, you take sum of all and divide by 3 because there are 3 categories. So your target DVI in this case is 10. Now, you have to meet this, if you have to meet this target, you would like to see that what is your current mix of your workforce. This organization has got a workforce of 1,000, and its split is like this, that 790 people are total headcount is in the non-management role, 200 are in the supervisors and managerial positions, and 10 people are in the C-suite or the direct reportee of the CEO. And the current headcount of the women in this organization, out of 10, 2 are female. Out of 200 supervisors, 50 are female. Out of 790 non-managerial workforce, 100 are female. Now, current headcount, which is simply 2 divided by 10, is 20%. So it shows that 20% of your workforce, 20% of your top management C-suite is your female, and your managers are 25%, and non-management is 12%. And over here, again, you calculate this DVI, current DVI. So it was your target DVI. Here it's your current DVI. So you multiply 20 with the 50 using the same formula. So it tells you that your current DVI is 10. That means there's a shortfall of 5 in this case. So your sum of the total DVI is 6.8, and sum of the DVI gap is 3.2. Sum of both is 10. Now, with this sheet is constructed in a way that whatever is your shortfall or the surplus in each area, it is calculated automatically. For example, if you progress on the D&I and your headcount at the top management in the women goes to 3, so you would see that there is no surplus or the shortfall. But if your women headcount goes to 4, you'll see that there is one woman in the C-suite is over and above the target. Likewise, over here, for example, your 30% of the workforce needs to be, workforce in the non-managerial position needs to be women. Currently, they are 100, and there is a shortfall of 137. Tomorrow, you meet this shortfall, so the shortfall is going to be 0. And if you increase that, you will come to know that 63 people are over and above. So this is a simple logical framework with the help of which you can determine, and you can use it as a scorecard to identify that where do you stand in terms of your target that you have set to meet your D&I goals. So this was part of a session, and I hope everyone has grasped it. Now, before we go towards the polling, I'm now going to unmute everyone. Rather, I would first of all like to see the chat box and see that if there's anything that you wish to have already written, we would be happy to answer to your question, and then we'll unmute everyone. And but please make sure that before you talk, you raise your hand so that we can exactly determine that who wants to speak, and then you have the opportunity to talk. Okay, now over here I'm going to the, I'm not sharing the screen, but I would like to see just a moment by chat. Yeah, then you let it be there. Okay, the first question is that that is from Natasha. That is this webinar on? I can't seem to hear anyone. I hope she has a trouble in individual capacity, because we sought confirmation from each one of you that is fine. Okay, started. Yeah. So there's no specific question. So now I'm going to unmute everyone, and please raise your hand and let me know who wants to speak. And, fortunately, there's somebody having a background voices. So once you raise your hand, I'll give you an opportunity to unmute, and you can talk. Otherwise, I think someone has a background noises and they're disturbing for everyone. So anyone having any question or the comment? Now you can also unmute yourself. This is now flexible. Please feel free to talk whatever you want to say. Okay, Eamon, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Hi, Zahid, and hi everyone else who's listening in. I'm working at the British Council. Specifically pertaining to the Diversity Value Index, it has been a question that's been in my mind for quite a while now. When it comes down to forced targets, and I understand a lot of us have targets that we have to meet in terms of gender ratio. What is that perfect balance between merit and having those right numbers in the head count as far as gender is concerned?
Eamon, as I told you that there's as such nothing fixed number where you can say right and wrong. It always depends upon the organization strategy, because as a part of your strategy, you want to determine that where you do currently stand and where do you want to go. One thing which can really be helpful to you is the market benchmarks, that supposedly you get certain numbers that a certain percentage of the women at the board level or the managerial level, if you are able to have that view, that can help you in setting your own benchmarks. But whether you have the external benchmarks or not, it's always the organization's own choice, because organizations have to carry on their own business. So whether they want to have a certain numbers or they do not want to have something, it's always this is a matter of own choice, and there's nothing hard and fast in that.
Okay, my question is slightly, what I'm trying to ask, I think I can phrase it better, is if you have certain targets that your organization has set in terms of gender ratio, headcount in particular, and how far can you go to achieve those targets? I think that's something that the market in general globally is struggling with. Okay, when it comes down to filling those positions with a female, are we going to make a merit compromise or not? Because I know for a fact it's the question that we do struggle with when it comes down to HR and having that choice between diversity and inclusion versus HR. In some cases, it's the same person. In some cases, those are different functions of the organization. But it's a question that I think other people would agree that we're struggling with at this point of time. So if you have any comments on that, what's the fine line? Where can we have that balance?
All right. In terms of achievement, Eamon, I would say that you just see the framework which is applicable for all the functions of your organization, because HR is just one component of it. For example, if you are doing a business like in British Council, you would have certain other targets also. You are into so many learning activities, conducting examinations, a few things. So your achievement of target is influenced by two things. Some of the things which are in your control and some of the things that are in your control, out of your control. Those are the environmental factors. Again, I would say that there is a possibility you just on the target, short of target, or above the target. There's no, as such, I would not like to recommend any particular benchmarks that you say this 80%, 70%. It's a matter of your own success. But certainly, if you have a defined targets, so it's always better to have a clear, measurable starting point and the ending point in the form of a benchmark, rather than having something in a subjective point, thing where there's no starting and the ending point. So the matter of achievement is always just like any other functions. So like if you're serving in a business organization, so you would see that business also has certain projections, but it's, I think, not every time that they meet the projections. Sometimes most of the cases they are short of projections. Sometimes they're on the target or beyond the target. So there's no, I would say, a fixed pattern which can, where you can say that this is good or this is bad. It's always a matter of your effort. But the only thing which is I'm emphasizing is that if you think something is important, like the quality guru said, that if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. So this instrument just tells you how to measure. Where do you want? What is your level of satisfaction? Where do you want to stop over? That is not shown with the help of this tool.
Okay, thank you, Zahid.
Welcome. Okay, the next question is by Arslan. Thank you, Aman, for your intelligent questions. Arslan, please go ahead. And you may like to switch on your video also if you wish to. It's your own choice.
Okay, my question would be, I would like to continue Eman's query. I mean, it may not be particular. Is there any benchmark in terms of past precedents? For example, you're saying if you set up a target for next year, and based on some past data that we may have from other companies, that other companies have been successful in setting up such benchmarks for themselves. You don't want to be overambitious. At the same time, you want to have a benchmark which is achievable. So is there any data that we can relate to while setting up these standards or benchmarks?
Right. So as you know that data is always in a context. The most recent research that I've come across is by the Pakistan Business Council. If they're ready to provide you their report, because they've done it for their own company, they've got almost 46 companies in their orbit. So they have laid down their certain benchmarks with them where they can determine, and you can use it as a reflection. Otherwise, worldwide, the benchmarks reports are available. SHRM also does certain global benchmarking, but the benchmarking in the US context or the UK context or the European context cannot be truly applicable in our environments. So I would always prefer a report which is more relevant and which is for the local industry. That is why, as a part of the process in our survey, now we are aiming to identify the percentage of the women. And as I told you, women is just one component, though the overall market is quite, I think, proactive on the gender side, because this is what I've learned as a part of my past, on the basis of my experience with the organizations, that the organizations are not, they're not very open to the other aspects of diversity, except in few cases, like I'm in the British Council, I know they're very receptive to disability and a few other aspects also, but majority of the organizations, they are now opening for the gender. So that is why in our survey that we are going to start, we would like to look at the composition of the women at the board level, at the C-suite level, managerial level, and non-managerial level. It is part of the survey. If you participate, you should be able to get a benchmark, because this is something you cannot find in the book or any other online source unless you have done a real research. So to summarize, I would say the most recent survey has been done by Pakistan Business Council. And going forward, we are going to conduct this survey. If you participate, we will be happy to provide you the report for that.
Great, we'll be happy to participate. So the other question was that the worksheet that we were just watching, which kind of covered your answer in your question just now, that they're not, the only aspect that we were measuring was the gender. What about the other aspects of diversity?
Wonderful. This is a very interesting question. And as I told you, as far as this standard is concerned, the GDIB standard, it defines the diversity in the form of the 26 possible dimensions. There are 26 different ways of looking at it. But as you know, in Pakistan, whatever the trend that I've seen as a part of, based on my interaction, majority of the organizations are now, they want to, because D&I as a subject is not very mature. Not only over here, last month, almost 2 months before, I was part of the global discussion, which was in New Jersey, where the people from all over the world and the people from the very mature organization, they were part of that organization. So over there also, the discussion was more revolved around the gender. So I would say the gender is not the sole component of it. The diversity is not all about the gender, but in our, you can say, progressive initiatives, we are now emphasizing to start with on the gender side. But as far as the learning is concerned, that is not restricted to just gender. You must have seen that we have a program for the disability, we have a program for the millennials. But in order to get the data, I think so far we are focusing on the gender side.
Understood. Okay. Thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Next one is the Sabina Zakir. Sabina, most welcome, and please go ahead with your question.
I'd like to say Assalamu alaikum to everyone, and thank you for having us here. Mr. Zahid, I'd like to introduce myself, and more than a question, it's a comment. It's been a pleasure listening to the entire presentation. And although I represent the Roots Millennium Schools, and I'm the director for community and outreach, and our organization is saturated with women, and of course it's 90-95% women led. I'd like to put a comment forward. And my comment would be that not being biased to any male, your good self, or any other person who's around, I'm just saying that in Pakistan, this awareness of gender equality, or even giving more responsibility, is so much on the rise and is bearing a lot of fruit also. So our organization, being a school, of course, has about 90% women. And because the tarbiyat and the learning part comes through that, and we've got all age factors that we deal with, it's just something that comes naturally with women probably. But having said that, I would like to say that all women should have the